So you've started stop motion, you're super pumped, you bought a bunch of really nice gear, but after making a 5-second clip, you decided to call it quits because you know what? Stop motion just takes too long. But hold on a second, there are a few things that you might be doing wrong that are costing you precious time when animating. So today I'm going to show you how you can address and solve those issues so you can animate faster and ultimately get more work done. Hey guys, welcome back to Learning Curve Tech, where I learn tech with you. And on this channel, I make stop motion tutorials for beginners on a budget, as well as tutorials for more advanced animators. So if you are looking for those kinds of videos, you can subscribe and hit the bell down below so you don't miss out on any further videos. So you might be doing some things wrong when animating that are wasting your time. Now I know I don't always follow these rules, but when I do use these strategies, I find it makes the whole process a lot faster and more productive. Now the first thing you want to do when animating is to plan your overall plot. So plan out your theme, whether you're going to have an action theme, a cinematic theme, maybe a science fiction theme, a dark theme, whatever kind of theme you have, make sure to plan it out beforehand. You also want to plan out your story, so your whole plot, you want to plan that out before you start animating, so then you have a good idea of what you're actually going to animate. Now after you have your theme and your story, you're probably going to want a shot list, and a shot list is basically just a list that you're going to have of all the shots that you want to convey the story and in what order you're going to shoot those. Now next, you're going to plan the movements of your character. So you're going to determine the pacing, whether your character is moving really fast or really slow depending on your theme, like we talked about earlier. Depending on your plot and the story and what theme you want it to have, you're going to determine now whether you want to be fast action or slow, more calm movements. You're also going to need to decide what movements you want to tell the story the best way possible. Now this all depends on your storyline and your theme and your pacing and all of the elements talked about before. Those are going to come into play now, and you're going to determine which movements you want to have for your character to do in order to tell the story in the best way possible. Now for the third step, you're going to need to plan the timing. So for this, you're going to take your pacing, whether it's going to be fast or slow, and your movements from the last step, and use those pacing and movements to determine the timing of your character's movements. So if it's an action film, then the movements are going to be faster and the pacing is going to be faster, and you're probably also going to have faster timing, which means you'll have less frames. Likewise, if your pacing is slower, your movements are slower, your timing's also going to be slower. So use the last steps to figure out what your timing is going to be like. Another really good way that I actually have used quite a bit is to go out and record yourself doing these actions. So let's say, for example, you're going to do a fighting scene. You're going to punch, punch, punch. And so you're going to go out and record yourself doing the action at the speed you want your character to do it, and then go back and view that back frame by frame, and then that way you can determine the action of a real character. But you also want to make this a little bit more exaggerated because it is animated. If you're finding this video really helpful so far, go ahead and give it a like. Or if you're not finding it helpful, go ahead and tell me in the comments below what I could do to improve. Okay, so now that you have all of the entire story, the pacing and the timing and the movements all planned out, that will really help make the animation process a lot faster, because now you have a whole plan for all of what you're going to do during your animation session. But there are still a few more things you can do. So number 4 is to use a lower resolution. Now you really only need 1920 by 1080 pixels or 1080p, which is basically just full HD, because most people are viewing on a very small screen, especially if you're just posting it to YouTube or another social media platform. They'll be viewing it on their phone, it's a really small screen, and most people won't be viewing it on a large TV unless you are showing it at a film festival or a theater or something like that, but most people will not be doing that. Now the reason you're going to want to use a lower resolution is because the lower resolution will mean that your computer won't have to render the image so much, because if you have a really big file, like a 4K or even like a 5K or 6K file, your computer is going to take a really long time to process that. But if you use only 1080p or even 720p, if you don't really care that much about quality, then your render times are going to be a lot faster and your animation process is just going to be a whole lot faster in general. Now for number 5, you can also just use faster equipment. If you have a really slow computer, you can go out and buy a new one if that's in your budget and that's for you. When I first started out animating, I was using a Chromebook, and then I upgraded to a laptop, which improved the time that it took to animate. But then I started using bigger file sizes, so it took maybe 10 seconds for the file to get from the computer to, took about 10 seconds for the file to get from the camera to the computer. But when I upgraded to a much faster desktop, it took about 2 seconds for the same file to get from the camera to the computer. Now, of course, you don't need faster equipment because it might not be in your budget, but if you can afford it, it definitely will help. If you want to take your stop motion skills to the next level, check out one of these tutorials. If you don't want to miss out on any further videos, subscribe by clicking the logo. That's all for now, guys, and I'll see you next time on Learning Curve Tech.